I think though, what I enjoyed was the fact that we had things like that, because all I could think, and Pete actually said this verbally at some point in the race, was just like, this is amazing. This is something that we haven't necessarily gotten in the US, like this type of, this type of trail. Maybe Casco is the closest to it, but it was just beautiful. And it was like, we're out here, we're doing it, and it was fun. I know there were a lot of people complaining and they were like, oh, we can't really run because it's so technical. But I was just like, this is cool. This is really real.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boyz, a swim run podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 247 of the show. We got a heartwarming one for everyone this week. Joining us to share their Ötillö journey is Team Mama Boys, Jared and Pete. You might remember them from episode 214 of the show, where we interviewed them literally right after they found out that they qualified for Ötillö, the Swimrun World Championship.
Yep.
And we asked them to come back to, come close the circle on their journey. Yes. And if you're not inspired after listening to this conversation, listen to it again, because it's great. Great.
Yeah, definitely highlight, cover their journey. Two different journeys.
Yeah.
Two different journeys there.
Yeah.
But
failed video
really
worthy of points. But yeah, an amazing story. Can't wait to share it with all of you. But that's a super long episode, super long conversation, so we won't belabor it too much.
Yes.
But we wanted to give a chipper knee update.
We do have a chipper knee update.
So stoked.
I've been through the U.S., what is the U.S. healthcare system.
Experience firsthand.
It's an experience. Yes. And I had an MRI, had the results literally yesterday, got the results in. So I was prepared for some sort of meniscus tear, strain, potentially ACL.
Yep. And I was trying to be realistic. I was like, hey, I know you're getting results. Good luck. Hopefully it's good news or the least bad news possible.
Yeah. I mean, it was like,
trying to be realistic.
Something was, it was going to be something, but I wasn't sure. Yeah. My recovery I guess recovery for lack of a better term, like every day I'd wake up, I'm like, wow, it feels better. Like it was really, I was feeling a lot of progress and I was not trying to be overly optimistic. Like, oh my gosh, it's just like getting better every day, which,
miracle of the human body.
Eat your leafy greens. And so anyway, diagnosis, I actually dislocated my kneecap. That dislocated and came back. And so from that, there's like a bone bruise and some medial. So like the inside of your knee ligament strain, obviously, because there was some stretching and twisting involved.
Yes.
And then like I'm missing cartilage on the back of my knee. So my knees are going to have but with a physical therapy and just rest, it should totally heal up on its own.
Yep. So no surgery.
No surgery.
No extended time on the DL with rehab.
Yeah. So very, very positive news, not just for, for getting back out there and doing more swim runs, but just general life. Like, obviously, I didn't want to have to get surgery and like non-weight bearing for months. That doesn't sound that would be fun.
Yeah. Really annoying to be with. No offense.
Yeah. No, I'm still like, I didn't go out for a run today or anything, but I'm like, oh, okay. Everything's getting better. Staying on my PT and just kind of slowly building back, which sort of but thank you everybody. I know there's been lots of people inquiring, asking Chris over when you saw him at a swim run. Well, it was supposed to be swim run Cape Cod. Thank you everybody for all the nice notes and, well wishes and that sort of, very much appreciate it. Yeah. So potentially the least worst news.
Yes.
So very happy. Everybody is happy in a performance circle.
Yeah.
Segues into racing updates. Low Tide Boyz official racing updates.
Yeah, so I was supposed to do the Rut 50K a few weeks back. I ended up DNFing. I ended up getting altitude sickness, which is a real bummer. I thought like I handled everything well, and that just kind of called me out. So I was super bummed. I gave myself 36 hours to just like wallow in self-pity. But this race is awesome. Definitely lived up to the hype in terms of level of difficulty. And so thanks for everyone who reached out about that, just to be like, hey, what happened? So there you go. But I processed it, and it's a bummer, but in the end, it was the right decision. I did promise my wife that I wouldn't do anything particularly stupid. was the exact quote. So,
yeah, I think your leash is shorter now after my particularly stupid thing that I did.
Yeah. It was, anyway, it was a thing. Luckily, because I didn't get to destroy myself as much as I was supposed to that day, I was supposed to do Swimrun Cape Cod this past weekend. And unfortunately, for the second year in a row, it got canceled due to just bad weather. So year one of the race, there was like literally a hurricane on Saturday, the day of the race. And then Sunday was a beautiful day. This year, it was like thunderstorms, 8 inches of rain fell overnight. I sent Chipper like a video being like, this is going to be interesting. And unfortunately, the park pulled the permit the morning of. So it was Andy and Kathleen. And again, Sunday was also a nice day again. So it was a huge bummer. I know Team Envol and a bunch of folks ended up doing the short course. Once the race was canceled, I changed my flight home and raced back to the airport to try to make it. Because that's the discipline that I impose on these. So a huge bummer. I feel really bad for the race directors. I think, this was taken out of their hands. It was funny because I was talking to my wife about it, and she's like, I was telling her it was like rainy and just super stormy. And to me, it's like perfect swimrun weather because you're already wearing exactly the right equipment to be in those types of conditions.
That is true.
So she's like, you must really love swimrun because like that doesn't sound interesting to me at all. I'm like, I think at this point it's pretty obvious that I love the sport. But yeah, huge bummer. Hopefully they bring it back next year and try again. I mean, kudos on their part for getting the insurance. But as someone noted on a meme we posted, insurance isn't going to cover all the expenses to get out there, which is unfortunate. But still believe in Swimrun Cape Cod. It's an awesome location for a venue. It was really cool to be back out there
as well. I think the successful Ötillö Casco Bay, really a lot of folks that we talked to were like, ooh, I want to go down and do that one. So
tons of definitely people were there.
Piqued the interest of the
region.
What is this? So that's not New England. I guess it is New England.
It is England. But yeah, I think it's a huge bummer, but it happens sometimes.
It does. We're going to kick it over to the interview with Pete and Jarrett, come full circle and hear how they're offering this year's Ötillö, the Swimrun World Championship, went after talking with them earlier. Right around Swimrun Christmas time would have been February time.
Yeah, I think we recorded
like
the day after or 2 days after.
Pretty fresh in their mind.
And there was a little bit of shell shock. So make sure if you don't know what we're talking about, go back to that episode, check it out. We've linked it in the show notes, or on our YouTube description for this. So check that out. And great conversation. I love those guys. I'm so proud of them. I'm so happy for them. They got the full Ötillö experience, which is awesome.
Absolutely. So without any further ado, let's jump into it with the Mama's Boys.
Mama Boys. All right, super excited to welcome back to the show our friends, Team Mama Boys, Jarrett, Pete. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us. It's good to see you guys again.
We're stoked to have you because when we had you back on episode 214, it was literally right after Swimrun Christmas. You guys just found out you got into Worlds, and it was the kind of, oh shit, we got into Worlds.
I was like, it's a very,
it's getting real. And I know you guys had a ton of trepidation, like all the effort that was going to go in. You knew it was going to be a big year. So we had to close the loop, right? We've been following you guys all year. We've been, supporting you both from afar and also like on the phone and like checking in on anxiety levels and all that stuff. And it happened. You guys went to Sweden, did the World Championship. So we want to break it down. Huge congrats. We've said it so many times. Anyone who just lines up at this thing, who shows up inside, wakes up at 3 a.m. to have some crappy breakfast, stressed out of your mind, get on the ferry, wait at that start line for that gun and go off at 6 a.m. I mean, anyone who just is willing to do that, respect. Why don't you bring us up to the point where you're getting on a ferry to go to Sandhamn? Like, how did your year develop? How are you guys feeling? Give us the story.
Yeah, let's jump into it. First off, I just have to say thank you. You guys answered so many questions that we had because you were right. We were stressed out of our minds. Just trying to figure out what this would look like and what it would feel like and what training and preparation would be. When we kind of jumped into this, it was kind of a little bit of a dream. When Pete and I first became partners, he had thrown the idea of Worlds out. And I was like, no way in hell will this ever like transpire after the first swim run that I ever did with him. And then, a year and a half later or so, here we are preparing, or there we were preparing. And I would say like our journey to Worlds, that year of preparation, or however many months it is, was a little bit rocky. Pete was definitely like our solid rock in preparation, where I kind of floundered a little bit. I dealt with a lot of injuries through the preparation process. I broke my ribs in July, broke 4 ribs like during prime training season or training
in an epic fashion. We have to say it was like a fail video. It was like an internet grade fail video.
What's the terrible thing is like my family, they were all sitting there laughing and I'm like, I don't think I can move.
I can't laugh. It hurts too much to laugh.
So while Pete was, and I'll let him tell his story, was just like kicking butt out there and preparing, I had to take about 2 months off of training, which even increased the anxiety and even more, because I was like, Pete, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if we're going to be able to make Worlds. And I kind of gave him permission. I was like, if you want to seek another partner who can be more prepared, you should do that. And I just have to give it to my partner. And there's a lot of things that I've learned through this process, this training process. Pete stood by me and was like, you know what? We did this as a team. Let's go in it as a team. If you can't, you can't. But if you can, let's give it a try. And I'll pause there because Pete really had most of the training for like preparation for the race, but he really was kind of my rock and like being what a partner should be and helping me get through that moment of injury. And there was even more. It was like a roller coaster. I think the heavens above were being like, are you really sure you want to do this? I broke my rib, pneumonia from the rib break, allergic reaction to medication. It was just like a downward spiral.
Wow.
Every day I was messaging Pete and I'm like, Pete, there's another issue. There's another problem. I'll stop. I would say you gave us some really good advice at the beginning in February, which was like, there's a big task ahead, and it seems daunting, but you have to take all the small steps. And I think one of the biggest and best things that we did was we got Batman's mom as our coach, and she built us just like a very, very solid plan. She was very mindful of the build, and, we did Lake James in March or April. And then, so we were sort of, we started working with her after that. And then she's like, you guys are already like fit, or, like you did the long course, let's like dial this up. And so she really worked with us really separately, but, as a team to get us ready for the competition. And I think that, at first I was like, this is such a slow build. Am I going to, is it going to build fast enough? But if you look at
there.
Really, it's like May, June, July. That was just like such a steady build where you're just dropping yards in the pool and miles on the course. And I must say, coming into, I did a big swim in August, like a 2.5 mile swim race. And then we were going to do Casco, which was like, it's like World's prep race. Jarrett wasn't ready to do that race yet. And originally I thought, I was like, oh, are we even going to be able to do Casco? Because he was still nursing his rib injury. And Coach Liz was, Pete, you can do the long course solo. I was like, what? I've never even done the Casco Bay long course to begin with, because like last year it was fogged out, and the 2 years prior we did it as a short course. I didn't even realize you could do long course solo at Casco. And she's, oh, they changed the rules. And I was like, oh, really? So Jared did the short course and I did the long course. And I think that was also just gave me a lot of confidence, because I had a really good race at Casco, and also bought Jared a little bit more time to just heal and prepare for the big race. So I think when we actually got to Sweden, we flew over, we arrived Wednesday before the race. We were in a pretty good headspace of, we can do this. But I know, as Jared said, he was just in his mind sort of like, worried. But when you're there, and you have to get ready to go for it. We felt really good. I must say, like, I listened to episode 177, 185,
Oh, he's got them
180.
down. Nice.
They're hired.
Yeah, which
You
was
looking for
your
an internship?
were your shows from last year. And I listened I can't even tell you how amazing that was and how detailed that was of the really micro race descriptions down to like where people would be cheering. It was that accurate. And we were fortunate that Nico and Marcus were like kind of grandmasters hosting all the Americans over there. So they actually took us out on the course on Thursday, and we actually went out to Ötillö and did the last 5 islands. And that
Nice.
was like such a boost of confidence because we hear these descriptions of what these crazy islands look like, but to actually get your eyes on them and, you know,
And your
we'd
feet.
all seen, yeah, feet.
Most
I've
importantly,
seen
your feet.
video of market wiping out, you know, in 2017 or whenever that video is. But to see those islands and how close they are, it kind of like boosted our confidence.
I mean, we felt the same way. Like
Oh,
when
yeah.
we went in 2022, just even doing like a shakeout, like to see what what the entries and exits look like was a huge confidence boost because just having boots on the ground is so helpful, right? Just to be able to see it, taste the water, feel what it's going to be like, and also actually start getting some insight onto the course. At least the last 5 islands is one less sort of mental thing that you need to keep in your head. It's okay, at least this is going to be a case of first impression. I'm curious though, leading up to getting to Sweden, was there a point in your training where you started really kind of like, instead of having sort of like having to be like fear-based training where it kind of turned into more, this is happening, I'm getting excited, like, will you start kind of looking forward to it rather than the sort of, I know for me, the first year, there was a little bit of existential dread, basically all the way up until we got to the second island of the race. But I'm curious for you guys if that was, working with a coach and sort of doing everything that you did, if that sort of helped you kind of turn the page on that earlier on.
I would say I had the fear of just like dying on the course, as my motivator to get up at 5 a.m. in the morning at the pool. And I was like, must accomplish Wiz's workouts. And really it just like the rigor of that focus and that structure, I didn't realize it, but I was getting super fit and, the yardage went up 12,000 a week, 15,000, 18,000. And I've never swam that much. And she just stuck it in somehow. I don't even know, but it felt good and felt really well trained. By the time August rolled around, it's kind of like you're in taper, sort of slow taper to the swim race I did, to Casco. Yeah, it really turned into confidence, and I felt good. I don't know if I can say I had the same experience, to be honest. And
sure,
yeah,
it was a little bit different for me. Right before I had my injury in July, I was starting to feel a lot more confident in the sense that there had been a point in my life where imagining just running 13 miles, I'd be like, that sounds terrible. I will never want to do that. To the point in my training where I was like, 13 miles, it's no big deal. Let's just go out and knock it out. But then the injury occurred, and every day that I couldn't go out and run or swim was actually the harder portion, and I'm more of a swimmer than runner. I just felt this extreme dread of, I'm going to let my partner down. I'm going to, if I drop out, there's a potential that he's not going to be able to find a partner in time. And I felt this huge weight on me. What I will say is that Liz, our coach, was extremely supportive and kind of reminding us and me specifically, hey, you've been training up until this point. You've built a fitness base, and there are other things that we can have you do that isn't necessarily running and swimming that can help at least maintain or try to maintain some of that fitness base. And I was very skeptical, but once I was able to start getting back in the pool and start running again, it was easier to kind of get back to where I don't think I ever really got back to where exactly I left off, but it wasn't as dramatic as I thought. But I still like thinking about the race gave me stomach aches like during that period of time. And I would text Pete or call Pete, or we'd be messaging and be like, man, my stomach hurts so much just thinking about this race. It was really scary. So I didn't have quite the same confidence that Pete had, but his confidence and his assurance really helped me like remind me that we can do this and we're doing it as a team.
Love it.
Yeah. And it sounds like Pete kind of having your back and like having confidence in the partnership as one of, hey, you got this, we'll get through this together, sort of help lift you there. And we've been kind of talking about confidence. Casco Bay, you sort of you did your own things on there. Pete, I imagine tackling that course, solo long course, probably gave you a lot of confidence. And Jarrett, like, that was your first race back. I'm sure you were a little bit like, oh, am I coming back too early? How was the short course? Did that give you like, hey, I can do this now. I wasn't totally dying out there or whatever the situation was. So how did the your different Casco experiences translate into confidence for Ötillö? Ötillö, rather.
Ötillö.
Yeah, how do you say that? I feel like I heard different pronouncing.
Yeah, Ötillö.
We're not the right people to ask, I'll tell you that.
I've been practicing.
I can jump in because I had the shorter course.
Shorter story.
Well, I looked that race actually a little bit more stressed because little did I know I was like at the tail end of COVID during that race. So not only was I racing with like half-healed rims, but I also had COVID. And so my heart rate and my breathing were like out the roof. Just, I was struggling. And luckily there's this lady on the course who kept pace with me and talked to me and was like, let's keep going. Don't stop. And she was extremely helpful. But when I finished, I was like, oh man, I got to do 3 to 4x of that for the world championship race. And it's like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, however far out it was very close. And I was like, oh shoot, am I ready to do this? But I think what it did tell me is the pain, like the rib pain, the discomfort wasn't debilitating enough to prevent me. And I think that gave me some confidence, but I still was really nervous about the overall fitness level.
So let me just interject. Yeah, let me just interject real quick because I remember seeing you guys. We had a Patreon Fika thing that you guys showed up to, which was great to see you. And I remember seeing Pete being like, "Damn, dude, you're looking fit, dude."
Fit as fuck.
And then we heard the story. You were doing the long course, and Jared was doing the short course, and I was like, "Oh, perfect, Pete. Just run until you get to the dock jump, and just wait for Jared. You just have to make sure you're a little bit speedy to catch the ferry." Or Jared can wait for you, but you guys didn't listen to any of that, which is probably a good thing.
Probably good.
I was like trying to line it up. Oh, you guys will totally see each other, then you could just do the rest together. But yeah, it was probably good that you didn't do that. But Pete, how did doing the long course? Casco is no joke. It's such great prep. It's the closest thing. Now that you've done both, you can co-sign. It's the closest thing that you're going to get to the world champs in our hemisphere. Going through that race, like give us your sort of mini race report for Casco.
I think Casco was, there was a lot of people doing solo, which was surprising. Like I've never paid attention to that category before. So I just kind of, you don't have to worry about transitions because it's literally just you. I was like passing people in and out of the water because I'm like literally just getting out and running. Like you don't have any of the extra time loss on transitions. I was also super fortunate. I teamed up with another solo athlete, Michael Murray out of Massachusetts.
Oh yeah,
and
sure.
Right, same swim pace. Like we were just like gunning it throughout the race. And my pull buoy actually came untied during the race. And he was like, "Oh, I'm a sailor. I can tie knots." And like literally reset my pull buoy mid race. And we finished. And I was so fit, I could actually, compete. And we were trying to, he was like calibrating our times. If the Low Tide Boyz finish at this pace and we're 7 minutes behind their pace and we should expect it. He was like doing all the calculations.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, I am here for this because he was just keeping me going and ended up having just like a really, really awesome race. It was just a big confidence boost.
Nice.
I love it. So let's take this moment to just, once again, isn't swimrun just the best? How you can just do these races and, connect with people and everyone's looking out for each other. I swear, there's so many redeeming qualities of the sport, but, in the heat of racing and difficult, challenging conditions and, the fact that it's still very much a community, even out on the course while everyone's racing. It's just great.
Yeah. It is. And one thing that you guys always say on the show is just like swim run the distance is like a hack because you're swimming and running. That couldn't be any more true in the fact that we could actually complete all of the worlds. Like it's so far and you think I could never do that. And, Jared and I are like looking at our watch. I'm like, oh, we've just done a marathon, like we're like trucking along. And those distances really melt away when you're on the course because you're having so much fun and like just chatting with people. And
I love it.
Weird.
I love it. We can't hold back any longer. We're going to have to get to the big day. Night before, probably not a lick of sleep, I'd imagine. How were the nerves when you arrived in the bubble?
Yeah.
So you're at, the hotel there. Did you take the bus? I assume. And it sounds like the Ötillö experience there was like, helping you out on the confidence level, but now transport us, you're in the bubble.
Feels very international, right? Like it's almost like a Casco kind of community, but on steroids, right? It's just, tell us kind of what you thought about when you got to Johanset.
It was very like, the descriptions are very accurate, how you describe it and the food and the people. I think what was different for us, which is probably different than when you have done it the past 2 years, is there are so many Americans there. We knew so many people. There were 50 people from the U.S. doing the race.
Wow.
That it felt like any old U.S. race where you're yucking it up with Callie Coed.
Hey, our old friend
Sarah.
Like
Sarah.
You see 5 times a year at races.
Yeah, it was just like the regular crew. And I feel like there was a lot of us that were just first timers that were just like over there. And so we had the international flair, but it also felt like summer camp because we literally all got there on Wednesday. And it was such a build up to get there and to get to the race. But, we got in, we locked in, we raced to the ARC tent to get our supplies. Like we needed
cards
straps
out
and stuff.
in hand. Take my money.
Yeah. Truly though.
Yeah.
Truly.
Did they have the sweat shorts that they had last year? Have any of that drip?
Not see sweat shorts.
I didn't see sweat shorts.
You bought them.
I have to interject though, because watching P, if any of you remember like the original Willy Wonka and like the kids enter the factory and their eyes are like all aglow and just sparkly. That was Pete. Me on the other hand, it's like these are like gods and goddesses like surrounding us. Like the most fit people I've ever seen in my life, and one low minus us, like us dad bods just chilling with you, very in shape people from all over the world. So I had to borrow some of Pete's confidence because he's like, isn't this amazing? I'm like, yeah, sure, man. Yeah, this is great. As I was fretting the next day of what the course would look like and how the experience would go. So I feel like it's a little bit of the yin yang here where Pete was like on cloud nine and I was like the Debbie Downer, like bringing us down. I don't know about this, Pete. I don't know. The other thing, I guess, the night before, though, is we're all worried about the weather. And, we talk about the weather and, the course is the main character, as you say. And it's like, for us, it was like very cold water temperatures. Like the water was in the mid 50s. And I think getting out on Udo a couple days before and really testing our gear in that really cold water and we could make some adjustments really helped. And then also it was like torrential raining. So like we, like it was raining the night before the race. And then, we eventually take the ferry out, like we were just in torrential rain.
Wow.
Which was also like, every year is different, but that was our year where we got the iceberg cold water and the super rain to start. So
certainly a proper Ötillö.
Yeah, you weren't cheated
in terms of the stuff. Now before we get to, we'd love to get sort of like a leg, a brief, sort of leg by leg from what you remember breakdown. But why don't you tell us a bit? So you said you made some adjustments to your gear. So what did you go with gear wise to, like we always say, just make sure you don't get hyperthermic. So like be super conservative on that stuff. I'm curious what you guys ended up going with.
Yeah. So we worked with the Orno X suits and then the thermal kangaroo tops. And so the thermals were upgrades because we were just going to do regular kangaroo. And then we also had the ARC halos on underneath our caps. And then we had sleeves and we literally kept sleeves on the whole race.
Wow.
But so I've never swam with so much stuff on. We didn't really sat down either. Like we stayed up like almost the entire race because it was pretty chilly.
Yeah,
Mm.
smart.
And from a
Yeah,
shoe, not that you asked
Uh-huh.
this, but other gear,
Yeah,
I
tell
actually
us.
was rating. So I actually had reached out, I think, to Chipper about this, and maybe you, Chris, too. I have the new Terexes and then I have the old ones. And so I was trying to determine which one I wanted to use because the newer ones seemed lighter and actually a little bit more grippier on the bottom. Like the treads seemed a little bit bigger.
Mhm.
And so I was kind of going back and forth of which one to use up until the morning of. And I decided to go with
Welcome to
the
my
old
struggle,
one.
dude. You were like in my mind, man. That's happens to me all the freaking time.
I'm taking more
Well,
position.
yeah.
Yes, I'm being definitive.
I really wanted to try the new ones, but what I was finding is like, I think they run a little bit big. And so when I was practicing and then my foot was like sliding everywhere. So I was like, I better just go with what I know.
Nice. Smart.
Smart. What about you, Pete? What do you have for shoes?
Oh, same shoes, the Terex.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then keel pluses or keels?
Heel plus. Heel for me, just the heel.
And then how about paddles? Carbon?
Yeah, the art carbon. Okay, so
Nice.
I debated on this too.
Wow.
I had the little floaty carbon ones, and then I also had, oh, why am I blanking right now? I had like the not the Arc brand, but like the Franks. I have Franks, I think.
A Frank
Frank
Pros?
Paddle Pros with the wings on them.
Big.
Oh, yeah. The pros are the blue steel pros.
It's the one with the snake on it. Does that?
Oh, Evolvent.
Evolvent.
Yeah, you have the
Oh,
Evolvent.
yeah. Sorry. I'm like mixing brands up. Sorry for
Okay.
if any of those people listen. But I've been training with those because they're just larger. I kind of wanted to see. But given the fact that I had missed about like 2 months of swimming with those, I was a little bit
Mhm.
nervous that they would wreck my shoulder. So I also did in our practice session, made a last minute decision. Well, it wasn't last minute, but decision in our practice to go to just the smaller air carbons
Nice.
versus the large ones.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's a smart, conservative decision for a day that's going to be the longest
Long.
swim run you've ever done.
Long day. And I mean, I think it's another good point in like the testing your gear the day before, just doing a little shakeout and kind of feeling how things dialed in. And that's why these, these shakeouts that we try to go to a lot are great, because if you are on the fence about gear or whatever, you can kind of answer some of these questions. And if you didn't do that shakeout or Nuto, you potentially could have went, with something that would have left you a little bit colder, it sounds. But it sounds like the thermal, you all were sufficiently warm for the day. Any issues?
No, I would say the only gear issue we had prior to the beginning of the race was our tether. Like our tether was too short at Lake James. We never tethered again because we didn't do Casco together. And when we showed our, we also had a tether with no real elastic. So if we had the micro tether, it was a little too short. But if you're on those rocks and you have no give, you're like yanking people around. Marcus helped hook us up with a new micro tether that had some, that elastic in it. So we used that for race day for the first time, and it worked awesome.
Nice.
I really like to see, or we didn't want to slip and pull the other one down, so we needed something with more.
Good
give.
idea.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
So we got the gear down. You get up super early, you get on that ferry, it's raining, so you're going down that. So I guess usually they have these little votive lights that are really nice and almost like you're going to like a cult, seance or
sacrifice.
something.
Sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Sweet be crazy, dog.
Chip,
Talk about this.
I had
No
this.
one's know about it.
It's a
I was
pull
like-
boy sacrifice.
I was like, are we
Yeah.
going to some cult sacrifice? Like these lights, like lit up everywhere, going down this dark path. Feeling it. Half of them are out though because of the rain.
Yeah,
So,
like,
like,
that's what I mean. So then it's
all
just dark.
right, all right.
The sacrifice of triathlete to the swim run guys.
So you guys, you make it to Sanham, which is a lovely island. I don't know if it's like in years past where no one can find a bathroom because they're all like under construction or something. But the race starts promptly, usually on time, 6 a.m. local time, 9 p.m. California time,
Yeah.
in case anyone's wondering. And yeah, I mean, How are you feeling before this gun goes off? I'm sure you're probably hanging out or hanging out with all the Americans, but kind of what's going through your mind as you're about to embark on this quest?
Um, I was excited. I thought the music they played at Race Start was also good. And then they,
Oh.
they like to dial up the drama, and the countdown was like the heartbeat and just, just the slow heartbeat. And then it was going faster and faster. And
Yeah.
I feel like that was like the start of the race. So I thought they were on their A game with the
Nice.
music
I'll have to get
to
the
hype us
Spotify
up.
playlist for that one.
I was scared. I will admit,
Um,
this is Team I, the very first race that I haven't had like a stomach issue like at the start of the race. Despite all the nerves that I was feeling leading up, this is the only one that I didn't have it. And I'm so grateful for that, because
Great.
to your point, there were just lines for the bathrooms. And I was like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to have to be in that. Then I didn't have to, which is great.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? You just found your happy place, or you're just like, it's happening? It's like,
I'd
might as
take
well
about-
like surrender.
I took like a pack of Imodium before the race. I think that helped. I'm not
Mm.
sure. Or it could have been, I actually think I did take Imodium, but I actually think what the real reason is because I knew that, and this is going to sound terrible, Pete and I chatted about it. It was just like, I knew I was coming off an injury, and whether or not we made it, it was just amazing. The fact that we were there and giving an effort, and we almost had an out. If we didn't make it, it's, oh, Jared had some broken ribs. And if we did make it, it's, oh, Jared had some broken ribs. That's great. Like, we put a lot of effort. Pete trained really hard and we got through. So I think the pressure had decreased, knowing that it wasn't going to be maybe like our best race, but we were there and we were going to try and we were going to give it what we could. And so
Nice.
that took a lot of pressure off of me personally, and it made me feel more comfortable.
Love it.
That's great. And then they slap the two wood things together and off it goes with behind the four-wheeler there. And so you're just standing in the starting
It's just
corral.
raining.
It's just raining on you, cold. You're like, okay,
Love it.
you got a mile swim coming up after. It's always quite, it's like my favorite scene out of all the Ötillö scenes is that running out of the forest and it hits the beach and everyone just kind of goes their own way. It's such a cool thing.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I know in a lot of the race previews are like the island's so far away, but they had the really good lights from the island so we could see where we're going. And, it was like pouring rain, so we didn't get that moment where we could look up and see the sun and be like, we're here, because it was just like heads down racing.
Yeah.
And, like it's the start of that race and everyone is like crazy trying to swim. So it was like our tether got caught. Someone kicked me in the head. Like it was a full on, 1 mile swim.
It sounds
But it was like, you're there. So it was good. And
And so who was leading the swims?
So I did that mile swim, and what I was going to say is, like, from the shore, you could see the strobe light, and I was like, oh, that's not going to be that bad. But the water was just choppy enough that when you were in it, it was actually very difficult to see the other side and to see that strobe light, because you're just kind of going up and down or getting slapped in the face with water. So I was just like, you know what? There's people all around us. Like, I'm assuming a lot of them are going the right way. So I'm just going to keep going. Hopefully at some point I'll see the strobe light and we'll know we're in the right spot.
Yeah.
That's the school of fish sighting method. Just
We
follow
used it-
as long
we
as
used
long
it
as
well.
as long as there's
Terrifying.
just one random person off into
Be around
oblivion.
more than one person. Or you end up in Finland.
So we heard, we were getting all sorts of race recaps from people that those first islands, which are already really treacherous, were just extra because it was just slippery for everyone.
Gosh.
So why don't you tell us, like, you make landfall on that first island? That has to feel great. You got the first run, first swim out. You're swim running. You already covered some distance. What was it like getting out on that first island? And what was the scene like?
I mean, it was slippery and it is very technical, as you say, but I think since we had seen some of those technical islands before, like on our pre-training, I knew what to expect. So I wasn't like, oh my God, this is so technical. It's very doable, but you have to go slow because you don't want to wipe out. And we saw a lot of people wipe out, and It's not really a time to pass people. It's just kind of like stay moving forward and keep going. And I don't know if anyone really talks about that cliff that you have to run next to, but I mean, that little lick and people like they were going off the edge and were going to fall into the water. And it was like, that was probably the trickiest part of those first couple islands was just like that cliff that I feel like no one really talks about, but they had us like literally running on the side of that. We were like holding on to a ledge, like kind of shimmying across.
I must have blocked. I've blocked this out of my memory twice, apparently.
Yeah, the cliff is on your left-hand side, and it's like, you're running on rocks, and it's just like right there, basically. There's like a little beach down the ways.
It must have gone down on the cliff. So we were like literally on the cliff, right, barely running on it. And if you took one lap, one false move or started sliding, you literally slide off into the water, which was like, 20 feet down.
It's a quick transition, at least.
Yeah. True. I think, though, what I enjoyed was the fact that we had things like that, because all I could think, and Pete actually said this verbally at some point in the race, was just like, this is amazing. This is something that we haven't necessarily gotten in the US, like this type of trail. Maybe Casco is the closest to it, but it was just beautiful. And it was like, we're out here, we're doing it, and it was fun. I know there were a lot of people complaining and they were like, oh, we can't really run because it's so technical. But I was just like, this is cool. This is really, really
nice. You know what? That mindset is kind of where you need to be at for a lot of this. I mean, that race could just, I mean, there's no insurance agency would insure that.
Farmers ain't touching that thing.
Yeah. No race director wants to say the waiver isn't going to save you. So so you get through these first couple islands and, you start, at this point, you're a swimmer, you're in it, you're moving forward. Why don't you walk us through like kind of how you're feeling, how you're moving, and how, when did you start feeling? I guess when you get to run Mara is probably the first time you can really start running, but how is it going? How are you guys moving forward?
I think before we got there, what I'll say is I felt like we had a little boost of confidence in the sense that, and Pete, I'm speaking for both of us, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like we were feeling pretty good, and we were seeing other teams who weren't feeling so good. For example, because we had to go so slow on those very technical, slippery islands, like right out the gate, we actually saw quite a few teams who were struggling with the cold. And we even had one team tell us like we're in trouble because they couldn't get warm enough because they weren't moving fast enough or weren't wearing the right gear. And while I feel extremely bad for those teams because like they had prepared to come to World Championships, it was a little bit of a booster to feel like, okay, Pete, you and I, we have this, we're not feeling that yet, and hopefully we won't, and we're still moving. And so that gave me like a little bit of a spark as we were kind of progressing to those longer runs or the islands where we could actually run. But I don't know, Pete, if you had a feeling or thought.
Yeah, no, I think we're just focused on the cutoffs. Like we knew, we're like, that's something that we need to worry about. So for us, it was kind of like, where are we getting to the checkpoints? And, kind of the biggest lesson that we heard is watch out for checkpoint 2, which is the 11:15 cutoff. So we were just like keeping our speed up. And then, Jared at one point, I don't know if he was just getting too chatty with some people or what, but I was like, you can save that for after 11:15, 11:16 was when we can start enjoying this race. Cause we hit the first with 30 minutes to spare. And I knew from listening to all the episodes, like that means nothing because you have all those, like you have a lot of substantial swims in between checkpoint 1 and checkpoint 2 that, we can't make up as much time on that. And then also there was one island that was just like super single track trail run. So it was another island where you really couldn't build up speed, and it was like a conga line going through that island. So it was just like, you're just kind of stuck in your position. So it really wasn't the time to, you really couldn't build the speed. So once we got on to the island that's checkpoint 2, shout out to PP and Banana's parents who were like there to greet us getting on the island.
Wow,
it's,
nice.
Kelly and Sarah's parents. And, I was like, what time is it? And they were like, it's 10:37. And I knew we only had to run 2 miles to get to the 11:15 cutoff. So we just started booking it. to just give us as much extra
Padding, yeah.
time but it was a longer run than I thought to get down to that checkpoint. The checkpoints where you go off and you go down and you can see teams coming back. But we got to that checkpoint with probably maybe only 8 minutes to spare. Like we definitely lost some of our speed that we had gained. But once we passed that checkpoint, we're like, yes, we get to do the rest of this race. We're gonna have a good day. Yeah. And we just kept charging forward.
So footnote.
Can I quickly say, foreshadowing a little bit. It wasn't as easy peasy as we have heard after that second checkpoint. But what I will say is at that second checkpoint, it was a little bit surreal because we had heard that's the most difficult one to get to, or like to make sure that you hit. And at that point, we hadn't seen a lot of our friends on the course, and we were getting a little bit nervous for them of, are they going to make this cutoff? What does that look like for them? And we have heard, as you had talked to Anna and her partner, Ben, that there was some leniency in past years. So we were like, maybe there'll be some leniency. And that wasn't the case this year. It sounds like they were very strict on the cutoffs and making sure that
probably with the weather and the water.
Yeah, I think given the cold water, that it was more like a safety thing. Teams sight the beam. Is it sight or? Yeah. Sight the beam.
Sight the beam.
So they made that cutoff by 30 seconds. So, so there was some anxiety behind you guys to make that, but they had an awesome race as well. Shout out to them, James and Justin. But tell us, okay, so you make it through that cutoff. Obviously, there's just so much race left in front of you. Did you guys experience kind of what we experienced both years, where it's at some point like time just kind of compresses and you look down and it's, oh my God, now we've been going for 4 hours
6
or
hours.
5 hours. Holy shit, where's the time going? Did you start kind of moving through the terrain like that? And I guess like part B to that question is, were you able to kind of appreciate just how amazing everything was around you? Or are you still just kind of, sort of similarly focused?
We were appreciating it. And I would say just back to those first couple islands, they're so beautiful. And all I had heard was the technicalities. So we were just like really loving it. And for us, it was like looking on my watch and the miles just like ticking by. And like all of a sudden we're at 26, 27, 28 miles. And we were just like charging forward. So that was really good. And until it wasn't good.
Until it wasn't. And I think is it the poop swim?
Yeah.
If the poop swim after cutoff too or before? I can't remember.
It's after.
Yeah. So where things started to deteriorate a little bit. Yeah. I'll let you take it away you lost your goggles. So yeah.
Ooh. So another tidbit that we heard at, the night before was they're like, oh, the salinity of the water is the same as your eyes. They're like, some people don't do this race with goggles. And I was like, I filed that away. And then Jared and I were talking the night before. We're like, oh, do we need to bring extra goggles? And I was like, if we lose it, we can just swim without goggles. And no sooner are we rolling into the poop swim that I finally take off my cap because we had that long run. And I have no idea where my goggles went. And we started getting into the poop swim. And I like literally had no goggles and had to get into that water. And they made the poop swim longer this year because someone built a dock. So we had to swim out around this other little nub of an island. And
it's like the only Swedish person that I know that's an a-hole is the person who like lives on Poop Island.
Yeah.
Then Jared's, oh, Pete, you can take this swim, because, thanks, Jared. So I like get in the water,
with shoulders and your
water, without my goggles. And then I start swimming and I just get yanked back. And someone forgot to zip up, because they were having a hard time zipping in all their nutrition. And like I got yanked back and then had to go all the way to the edge of the water and help Jared zip up his suit because he couldn't even zip it up with all his gels. And 1,000 teams passed us. And then we had to swim the poop swim. I feel like I did it 1.5 times.
Wow.
It's a shitty story.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's like literally. And then I think from that point, things started to kind of spiral kind of quickly, fast, mainly because of me. So I was struggling to get my suit zipped up whenever I would unzip it to take nutrition. And Pete says it's because I'm wearing a size too small. But you know what? Whatever, Pete. I felt like it was the perfect size. And I was having a really hard time to it up. So I got to this point, and I feel like this is 101 swim run that I've heard you guys talk about, Coach Liz has told us about, is really like making sure that you're fueling and staying up on your nutrition. And I kind of let it all go. And it was a terrible, terrible mistake. But again, I was just like frustrated of having to zip and unzip and like having to have Pete help me squeeze everything in. So I was like, you know what? I'll just get some food at the aid stations. That will be sufficient. At that point, I went to go pull out some of my tablets, my electrolyte tablets. The container had broken and they had all dissolved. So I had none.
Sucks.
Oh,
And I was just like, it's no big deal. Like, I'm feeling good. And I think at that point, I maybe had taken 2 or 3 sips from like a 90 gel. I really was not feeling properly. And we got eventually to the pig swim. And I was like, we had kind of talked about switching off on the pig swim. Like I would swim half and then Pete would swim half. But in the moment I was like, oh, I'm feeling okay. I'm feeling decent. Like I'll do this. And we kind of come up over this ledge and we can see the pig swim in front of us and it's looking really choppy. There's
It's a sight. It's a sight. I think, why don't you paint the picture for people at home? When you come over, you come basically to this little tiny edge and you have this expanse. What did you guys see when you came over that crest? And was it still raining then, or at that point had it stopped?
It was like kind of clearing up. It was still
It started clearing then, but the wind started picking up. So we had much bigger waves than we had ever had earlier in the race. So we had big roller waves.
I think they said there were like 6-foot swells. I may be making it up, but I feel like I heard that.
It might be 10-foot swells. I cannot be sure, but
It's the butt wave meter says that they were 10 feet white caps.
maybe 15.
I think the
Double
best way
overhead.
that I can explain it is in any of you have ever seen like a picture of a lighthouse, like those old pictures where there's like spray flying off the waves and the lighthouse because of the wind. That's what the pig swim looked like. Literally, we could see people swimming and there was just like spray flying off of them. And they were just like bobbing up and down these waves. And I was like, oh, crap. I guess this is a little bit harder than I expected. So we get in and we start swimming. And I would actually say probably the first 1,000 meters was okay. Besides being like hit in the face with waves. And maybe picking this up in my head, but what I recall is the waves weren't going in one direction. They were like hitting each other. It just looked like a...
Yes. Yeah, it's like the victory at sea. That's how Andy Hewitt calls it. It's just kind of like they're just, just getting hit both ways.
from both sides.
Yeah.
So I couldn't see the other side in the water. And so I kept stopping to recalibrate us and make sure we were going the right way. And even when I would stop, because it was so choppy, I was having a hard time seeing the other side. And Pete was just like, go straight. And I was like, okay, he's got better eyesight than me, so I'm just going to go straight.
And without goggles.
Yeah, without goggles, he had better eyesight than me. And there was a point where I knew because of my watch vibrating that we had gone about 1,000 meters. So I stopped and I was like, okay, Pete, we have 400 meters left. This should be no big deal. And I think, and honestly, at that point, we probably should have switched. Pete his swimming had improved so much that he was like right on my tail and was hitting my feet. And I could tell I was starting to weaken and wear out. And I feel like we maybe stayed in the same spot for 20 to 30 minutes. Again, it probably wasn't that long, but that's what it felt like. And it felt like forever going that last 400 meters. And in fact, I think we ended up swimming a total of 2,000 versus the 1,400 that it was supposed to be because of the waves, the current, and just being a little bit off. And when we got out of that swim, I knew that we were going to be a little bit screwed because immediately my heart rate jumped, and not as in it wasn't high when I was in the water. It like jumped when I got up. And I started to feel really light. And I realized I had no energy and I hadn't fueled properly.
Wait, hold on. Time out. Did you not take the fucking gel before the pieces?
I did.
Those
I would try to help you, Jeremy.
You
did the
did.
best we
Pete even brought this up. I think the night
Oh my
before, he's
gosh.
like, the Low Tide Boyz say take a gel before this swim.
Oscar Wilson. Yeah.
And I didn't, because at the poop swim, we had let, when I say we, me, I let so many people get in front of us, like trying to zip up this. I was just like, we're not going to have that issue on this swim. So I didn't, and I was done. And I knew that it was going to take a while. Like, even if I started feeling then, it's going to take a while for all of it to kick back in.
Yeah.
And boy, did it ever. So Pete, I was like, Pete, you're going to have to lead the swims, like the next few swims. And I think there's like a 950 shortly after. It might be like right after that.
Even a
or-
worse one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the real swim. I mean, the pig swim is a beast, but that 900-meter swim a couple islands later, like that's the one that really calls people out, because those runs are so short leading to it. You don't really get like enough heat back in the system.
Yeah, it's like a 900 and a 250. But we did get our Twix. They had plenty of Twix on the course
to
this
hear it.
year. I got the left and the right Twix. And so I just kind of pulled Jared along. Like I let him catch his breath and try to get his heart rate down. And then, I just started leading all the swims and the runs.
Mode, it sounds. And Jared, you were
Dude,
just
MVP
shoving
style.
precision fuel and hydration down your face as much as you could stomach.
Well, I was trying, guys. I was really trying. But at that point, I was lightheaded and like feeling really nauseous. And so I was like, I'm either going to pass out or throw up. One of maybe.
Yeah.
So I was really struggling to get things down. And even at the aid stations, because I think there's a few, like between there and then like on Orna, I just was like, man, I cannot stomach any of this food. I just feel gross. So Pete really, his training really shone, because he took the lead and was just like, let's go. And that's what we did. And I think we got to Orna, and that for me was the biggest struggle, because I still hadn't recuperated. In fact, I think I was even worse when we got there. And I was just like, Pete, I can't run. I literally feel like my body has no energy to run. And he was being very optimistic, and he was like, okay, we got to run. And, we have to make it to the end of this island by 6. And I was in just a terrible state of mind. Like everything I had been so happy at the beginning. And at this point, I was like, F you, Pete, like in my mind. I didn't say this verbally, but he kept talking to me. He's like, got this, we can do this. I was just like, shut up. I just want to lie down and not go anymore. And I was like, if you want to go, you freaking go, but not trying to tell me to go. So I was really, really struggling. And I could tell it was really weighing on me, because I could tell Pete was being optimistic, but I also knew we were almost done. If we could just finish that island, like we would almost be done. And I could feel that weight of just knowing that if we didn't make it, it would be because of me and like my poor fueling decisions that I had made. And at that point, a lot of people passed us, because I was walking a lot. And honestly, like Nico from Envol kind of came up, and he's like, you boys got to keep going. Like you got to go. And I was kind of the same mentality where I was like, forget you, leave me alone, get out of here. I think at he started live streaming us, and I was like, but what I will say
Like,
is
we're
like,
not even coached by you, man. That are
they're like
He was
commentary.
like live streaming us. And then we had Trista commenting in from America going,
Adding insult to injury.
Like, graceful from her itself. And I was, what is going on? We're like, just how? What?
You're like, we're
It's-
trying
it's
to
like
hold it
crazy.
together, and here
Yeah, you guys probably look like you just came out of the bush in Nam in 1971 or something, and then it's hey, how's it going, guys? Like, you're doing great. You're like,
I
"Wow."
actually touched the camera.
He was looking great. He was looking strong. I was looking like death. But I will admit, despite my poor attitude in that moment, if it weren't for Pete and like the commentary and the pushing that were coming from around us, like the community of Swim Run, and really coming in to help, give me a little bit of words of motivation. To be honest with you, I don't think I would have made it to the end of Orna. I think we've gotten cool. So for all of those out there who sent us good wishes and good vibes, thank you so much, because you really at least pulled me through. In addition to Pete, Pete really was the rock here.
It sounds like Pete, you would certainly be turned into like the MVP of the race.
Yeah.
I've held that title for one race, and I know how great it feels to be
Probably
able
more than one.
to support your partner and kind of get them through the low points. I mean, and isn't that again just another sort of self-serving for throw some red meat to the swim run fans out there? Isn't that just like such a great part of the sport? You're more than the sum of your parts, right? When you work as a team, like you're. Jared, you wanted to do your best for Pete. Pete, you wanted to do your best for Jared. And you like together, you're more than you are individually. And I mean, I think it's just, at the biggest stage, that held true, just like it holds true at a local little mom and pop race. It's great.
Yeah, it's the best part of the sport. And I was saying, like, in the beginning before, we bumped into Nico, I was like, Jared, you made it here. We did this race. We're like 30 miles in. This was a great day, regardless of the outcome, because you're just happy to be there.
Yeah.
Obviously I want to still finish the race, but that's part of it. It's like a team. And, some people didn't even make it to the cutoffs, or like they had other challenges. And I was just fortunate that we got to do as much as the race as we did. But then, Jared seemed to pull it together once all that nutrition and like salt and stuff started kicking in. We did get to the end of Orna. We literally got there 5:58 and the cutoff was at 6:00. And then we caught up with a whole bunch more teams. It's there like catching a breath before we had to swim the last 5 islands. So yeah.
So those last 5 islands, you kind of did it like in a pack of people, or you guys just stuck together, or how did it go for that last stretch? And also, that last bit of Orna, isn't it just diabolical where you're just like, oh, wait, there's some water over there. Oh, no, you got to go back into the trails for a mile and just get destroyed. Oh, so bad.
Yeah, I remember, there's a swim. And no, why are we going further? Into
Wait, the water's over there. Are we going this way?
I must say, though, once you did that church, you're like home free. Like that, that was like a big confidence boost, that that restaurant. And then,
Jesus there, though.
No. Yeah. I was like, up until we got to the water's edge, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the worst. Because when you're going back, there's trails and you're approaching water, it kind of it's like traily, but it's a little bit hilly. And for a second, I was, where is the water? Are we even close? I don't think we're going to make it. And then we just come over this little hill, and then it was like right there. And there was a lady down there who was like, just cross over this line, like you got it. And so we hoofed it. But what I'll say is when we got to that entrance, the next swim to the island 5 for the countdown of the islands, I was so lightheaded that because my nutrition hadn't quite hit yet, that I actually had peed for stability. And I was a little bit fearful that they were going to be like, you guys can't go any further. And so I was like, okay, Pete, just like kind of fall in, and like I'll fall in after. And
it's same thing that happens when the cops pull you over, right? Act natural, right? Was that?
But it's like Europe, and insurance over there. They they were like, oh,
I mean, they let you run on a cliff. I don't think. Oh, that guy looks a little dizzy. He missed a gel. I think we should yank him.
Send those 2 into the arctic cold water, and it was like getting dark, and I was. Oh, great. And then I was like leading everything at that point. But we hustled over the past couple islands. There was probably like 5 teams that were kind of like on the islands with us.
Nice.
And everyone was in their own version of the Hurt Locker. But, we just muscled through. Those last islands are relatively short. So it's kind of nice.
Plus, you've done them already, right? So you kind of had a
bank,
sense of where you are. At least there was that familiarity, which I'm sure that had to help.
Yeah. And then you get to, and then Nico is like a magician. He like teleports island to island. I don't know how, but he was there on Udo to see us swim over. And so it was great. And then we knew we just had the last, 2.5 miles to the finish line. And Jared was like a new person. Like
oh, nice.
Nico was like, what happened, Jared? Like he was like, he gained all his strength back and was happy and ready to race.
Yeah, then Darren, let's go slowpoke.
Yeah. I'll pull you on these runs, Pete.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So obviously, you get to Ötillö, which is, I know for us both years, is once you make landfall, it's almost, Christopher Columbus, like discovering, Hispaniola. You're just like, oh my God. It must have felt amazing. And then, of course, coming up that Heartbreak Hill, which, we're from San Francisco. It's not that bad, but, it is at the end of a super long day. How did it feel getting up that hill and obviously crossing that finish line? Must have just been an amazing feeling.
We kind of approaching that hill because we have seen it when we were out there the few days before.
All right.
We kind of made this act of, okay, we're going to walk part way up and then we'll run like across the finish line where everyone can see us. The problem is there were people at the bottom, like waiting, like Pete's bike was down there and there was people like spread out across the hill. So we ran the whole thing, but I will admit, I feel like we got a third, fourth one. I don't know how many wins it was at that point, but we like booked it up that hill and it felt pretty great crossing the finish line.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you crossed the finish line, you got it done. I mean, we're obviously super stoked for you. Anyone who's crossed paths with you had to be stoked for you. Did you guys feel accomplished? Did you feel like, give us a little bit about kind of what you were feeling, sort of relief, kind of what was the primary emotion? Like you can stop.
I must say, going into the whole race, I so enjoyed the buildup and the training and getting over there and all the fun we had before the race. I was like, oh, like we'd done it. And I had the little like post-race depression. I was like, oh, we did it. This is amazing. And I was like, oh, now we like got to transition back to what other races do we have coming? It's such a big, and you're like, check. But instantly I knew, I personally, as we crossed the finish line, was like, sign me up for next year. I can do this again. It took Jarrett maybe a breath more time to, we could do this again. But I could see how you guys did it 2 years in a row because you did it, you learned. And now I'm like kind of fired up to go again because I know if we can do it without, having some bonking happening, we can probably really drop some major time. So
on a really hard year. I mean, it was a slow year. Super challenging, as you alluded to. I mean, some really high-powered teams like our friend Chris Wright, his partner, like they got too cold and DNF'd. And, this is a guy who did one water race. He won like Whistler, long course solo. There are some pretty stout people who got called out. And, we mentioned it before. I mean, this race is a beast and it's not about who's the best prepared. It's, you have to be prepared, but it's a little bit of luck in there too and make good decisions and be smart and have good communication. And you guys really, besides, not following a good nutrition plan for you, Jarrett, besides that, which is in many ways, that's correctable, at least,
that's easy to fix.
At least you didn't break a foot or a hand or something, right? I mean, I'm just so stoked for you guys. Again, going back to the start of this episode or this conversation when, in February to now, I mean, the arc of your story is just so amazing. And, I'm sure I speak for everyone who listens to the show that, just super stoked for you, man. I mean, what an achievement and just a huge congrats.
Thank you. We're psyched. I feel like we graduated. It was like swim run graduation.
Yeah.
Like we've done
certainly.
You guys were like the seniors, like we were freshmen like 4 years ago. Now we graduated with a whole bunch more team. You know what I mean? It was or we at Sarah, for Monkey See, I was like, oh, she's like showing us the way and how to get into the water. And everyone's like passing on their pearls of wisdom. But I think we graduated a very big class this year too.
Nice job.
Totally. Big class, getting high marks. And I guess, you
pass fail type of thing.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So you guys already mentioned it that, you'd like to do it again and you're thinking you're going to try to you probably have a decent amount of points already, but you're thinking you're going to try to qualify again and run it back next year?
I don't know if we'll do it next year because frankly, we've done Lake James and then I have
points.
More. Someone did the short course, so they do not have points. So we have to kind of figure that out. But I think we might do Rockman next year and then do Worlds here. If pending approval from the Wise.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say for me, I have 2 little kids and I know you guys can you're in a similar position. For me, like my wife gave me a lot of support to train and do these races this past year. So I think I might have to take a year break from Worlds and give her some time and then return and be better. Because I definitely think we could do so much better having seen the outcome of this race. Like we did it, we know we can do it. Now we just need to continue to improve. So that's
Yeah.
kind of my mind. But things can change. Things can change.
Yeah.
Opinion.
Well, I also love hearing. I love hearing how the love for the sport has deepened, even despite the adversity
Definitely.
you guys face. Which, I mean, you guys drank the Kool-Aid a long time ago. We've also been drinking this Kool-Aid, but it's just great to see. It's great to see, and I think for people at home who want to get inspired to do this, I mean, just literally look no further to what you guys were able to do. You committed to it. You did it right. You took it seriously. You showed up 5 a.m, doing the work, and it paid off. And it's just like such a great story. And we're so happy we're able to really tie a bow to really what was an amazing year for you guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, awesome stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. We wrap it
I
up.
don't know. What else is there to say? How was the breakfast the next morning?
The breakfast was
Legendary.
as described. Yeah. It was
I
great.
love it.
If I could just say one thing, I know we're like probably way over time here, but
No, you're good.
I have to give it to the freaking community, because from all the swim runners that we've met to like the group, I mean, Nico kind of giving us giving us a boost there in the middle of the race, and to Liz, who was like, you can do this. You got this. I have never felt more supported in an undertaking that I've taken. And I felt a little bit emotional crossing the finish line because of that, just realizing of how many people have been there to support us along the way, from our families to just the people that complete strangers that we've met, to even the people on the race course, like the little old lady who is like ringing a bell and telling us to go faster. Amazing experience. And that's why I love the sport, and that's why I'm going to keep coming. So if there is anyone who's listening who's new to the sport, there's a whole community out there who's like ready to cheer you on. And you can do it. If we can do it, you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I forget who said it. I think it was Nikki from As Keen as Mustard. Swim run, the friendliest sport there is.
I believe that is proper
Just
attribution.
the friendliest sport. So great.
Amen.
So great. All right, guys, we did it.
Yeah.
You guys did it. Congrats again on the journey, on the execution. Thank you so much for coming back on the show and sharing it with us and with our listeners and viewers on YouTube. Great stuff. And we'll see you out there at, the next race once you have clearance, which we totally
Pending
know what that's
approval.
like.
Understand that as well.
You may see us at Swimmer on NC.
Nice.
Ooh, nice.
Nice.
Then we're putting our positive thoughts.
Nice.
That's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a rating or review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Check out our website, lowtideboyz.com. That's boys with a Z, for swim run resources, including gear guides, tips, how-to videos, and so much more. Make sure to check out our meme page at The Low Tide Boyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, send us a DM or email us at lowtideboyz@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swim run and other activities.
Lots of activities.
Lots of activities.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Then a run,
And then a swim,
then another run,
then another swim.
then run some more.
Just keep going.
Let's go.
And then stop at some point because,
And fuel. Don't forget to fuel.
Gotta fuel
Of
too.
course, yes.